Welcome to Brainstorm MTG. I'm ELD, and this is Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Ball Games in Bellingham, Mass. We've got Nick on a 4-color Lands Brew. Very interested to see what's going to be in here versus Tristan on a Wrenn and 6 control deck. Nick leading out not too explosive here, just a Misty Rainforest, Scalding Tarn sacrifice for Tristan. Fetching a Snow Basic. Those snow lands, so resilient in the face of Wasteland, and allowing Arkham's Astrolabe to not only solve your mana problems, but also cantrip along the way. An incredibly powerful effect that is totally at home with other powerful effects in Legacy. It is a little bit more powerful in Pauper relative to the rest of the pool, where there it's some people are hoping that it actually gets a ban. But here in Legacy, we're just sorting all of this stuff out. It is becoming, I'd say, kind of less and less defined as we have more and more options. Archetypes can kind of blur together a little bit here and there. It's a really interesting phenomenon, and that's kind of what we're seeing here with Nick on this lands control deck. We'll see what else he has in here. But my understanding is it's similar to the lands build that you might typically see in Legacy, though not as much of lately. Most people have switched over to Turbo Depths rather than the slower lands build, but he's managed to get blue in there for Brainstorm. And we'll see if he's got some other cantrips as well. Wrenn and 6 mows down this Baleful Strix. Happy to do that. And there's the Thespian stage, so we might just see a Dark Depths on the following turn. And that would be pretty close to a wrap if he can somehow protect it. We'll see what Tristan has for answers. Looks like he's got a bunch of counter spells. Fetching a basic island. I believe that's one from Amonkhet or Hour of Devastation, I'm not sure. And Wrenn and 6 picking that land back up from the graveyard. Baleful Strix comes back down. 2 mana cantrips, not where Tristan wants to be. He actually has to discard a Plague Engineer. And now another fetch. Plague Engineer, incredibly good card. Just one of many from Modern Horizons. Like many of the best cards in the set, it has gone up significantly from its pre-order pricing. We've got a Force of Will on Jace. That gets Spell Pierced. Tristan Force of Will's back. And at this point, at least Tristan able to fight despite not having any real mana base here. He's got another Force in hand in case there's another must-counter threat, but this Wrenn and 6 just continually generating card advantage, picking those lands up, getting the shuffle effect, making the land drops. Oh, and now we've got, I believe, Ghost Quarter. That's probably not going to work out as well as Nick would like. Abrupt Decay. Oh, yeah, like immediately punished for that. So the Ghost Quarter, kind of a cute idea, but this deck does have a bunch of basic lands. And actually that unlocked Abrupt Decay for him, clearing that. And now he's got another Force of Will for the crop rotation, which would have gotten a Merit Lage into play in a real hurry. And now Plague Engineer on Nick's side of the board. Not the most exciting threat. Tabernacle in play. He has to pay 1 for the Engineer. And Spell Pierce, or Spell Snare, stopping that Sylvan Library. That would have been another game-breaking card. A Wasteland here, not likely to have a target. Tristan. Oh, there we go. So he fetches in response and then stifles. Or he just fetches. There's no Wasteland being thrown at it yet. Down to 8. This Plague Engineer may just get there. Really hoping to see something a little more exciting out of the lands deck. At the end, he crop rotates. Tristan sees the writing on the wall and scoops it up. Those beatings that he was taking from the Plague Engineer are going to end up being irrelevant, as Merit Lage would show up and do all of the final damage in one single swing. 20 damage, indestructible, flying. Just one of many ways to win in Legacy. Tristan just unable to get enough of a mana base going there. This is kind of the early days of integrating these cards. I'm working through the backlog right now. Looks like the very end of August, August 28th is when this took place. So a little over a month ago. So these mana bases still being refined. I know it doesn't seem like that long ago, but there's a lot of work that gets done here. We're playing every Wednesday and every Friday. A lot of very good players in the room, and these mana bases do get refined. Things do get solved over time. And we'll see if his mana base works out a little better for him here. Arkham's Astrolabe. When they can go turn 1 Ponder, or turn 1 Arkham's Astrolabe off of a basic island, and then turn 2 Hymn to Torok with a basic swamp, that's just incredible. Just absolutely ridiculous to have any color mana you need, starting on turn 2, having a completely impervious mana base to the land destruction that's actually played in the format. Technically we've got Sinkhole and some other ways of affecting basics, but they're really not played very much. Wasteland is really where you want to be if you're taking out other lands. Blood Moon back to basics. There's a certain level of efficiency that you typically want in Legacy. Not to say that mono black decks with Sinkhole can't succeed, but it's certainly not the premier strategies in the format. Tristan has a bunch of land here. I am still loving this new mulligan rule. Arkham's Astrolabe, likely off a basic island. So Tristan going to be drawing a card, advancing his plan, getting that perfectly smooth mana, whatever colors he needs as he develops this, and now Chrome Mox into Brainstorm. So he's got one floating, or one available, I should say. Oh, that's Mox Diamond. I'll be all right. Mox Diamond discarding Flooded Strand. It's like, what did he imprint? That is the From the Vault printing. A Spell Pierce on Ren and 6. So yeah, turn 1 basic island, turn 2 Ren and 6. It does get Spell Pierced. Ponder into Maze of Ith. Another card that's a holdover from that earlier land shell that Nick has, I guess we can say, upgraded. We'll see how this goes. We need to see a lot of tournaments before considering anything a true upgrade. But he has taken that land's shell and added in Ponder and Brainstorm and some counter spells. And now Plague Engineer. That was a lot of the action from last game. Nick completely hellbent. And Tristan brainstorming. We see a red elemental blast, but that won't clear this engineer. But it does leave him in somewhat decent shape. This 2 damage a turn, not a very threatening clock. Tristan would certainly trade some life points just to get ahead in terms of resources, cards in hand. As long as he can cast his spells, he's going to be fine with his mana base. And now would be a nice time for like a Colgan's Command. Now we've got a Snapcaster that gets Red Elemental Blast targeting it. And Tristan feels strongly enough about that he's going to go ahead and force a will. And we've got a Ponder. So what is this Plague Engineer naming? That Snapcaster sticking around. I would imagine Human or Wizard would be the most likely things to name. Maybe he went after Baleful Strix? Yeah, I guess he went after Baleful Strix. So Wasteland on Tristan's hand. Red Elemental Blast. I feel like this may be an error. Wasteland, a pretty high value card if your opponent's trying to win with Dark Depths. Ponder now. That gets red blasted. And Tristan way ahead on cards in hand, so he's potentially going to be happy just trading resources 1 for 1. Getting 2 for 1s where he can. As long as he's got more resources to work with, he's going to be happy. And now Jace. And Nick actually using Stifle to stop the Jace's Fate Sealing. Oh. Very interesting. Brainstorm now. And things looking very out of hand now in Tristan's favor. 2 Planeswalkers, a Snapcaster Mage holding off that Plague Engineer. And he's actually going to use the Wasteland. Now that he's got Renin 6, he can start picking up more and more lands. But the opposing Renin 6 now from Nick, clearing his Snapcaster and kind of temporarily blowing the game state wide open until Liliana's Triumph actually clears the Plague Engineer as well. Now we've got dueling Renin 6s. Baleful Strix comes down, draws a card. And Fate Sealing. I believe that was a counterspell, perhaps a Force of Will. Abrupt Decay takes out the Renin 6, and we're on to game number 3. Nick not willing to face down a Jace, a Renin 6, and a Baleful Strix with 0 board presence aside from his lands. We'll see what he can do in game number 3. Nick was in a line there where he ended up hellbent. No cards in hand. Not typically where you want to be with a traditional control deck, but I'm not sure how far off the mark that is for what he's trying to do here. Looks like his counterspells may just be to try and buy time to get his combo online. Making a 20/20 as fast as possible is fine, but sometimes you want to just make sure that your opponent also doesn't do anything too busted along the way, and that's looks like what Nick has built this deck to do. Stifle, a very solid card in this type of matchup. Really, anything that's got Wasteland against your Dark Depths, Stifle can be a really powerful tool against that. Wasteland traditionally uncounterable. You usually have to find clever workarounds. Your own Wastelands can also be good against it. The main takeaway with Dark Depths Thespian Stage combo for people to really remember in the heat of the moment is to make sure that you allow the Legend rule to resolve, allow their Dark Depths to go to the graveyard, and then you're going to want to Wasteland their Thespian Stage in response to the state trigger. It will not trigger again as long as there's a copy of that trigger on the stack. And you can actually just get that out of there. You do not want to try and use a card like Stifle on that state trigger. If you do that, you will essentially counter the state trigger, and then the trigger will be placed back on the stack as the condition will still be true. You'll still have a Thespian stage with 0 counters on it that is named Dark Depths. Actually, I guess more accurately, you have a Dark Depths with the Thespian stage ability on it with 0 counters. It does actually change the name of the card. That is a very feel-bad moment. I've seen that actually happen in tournaments where people ask the judge if they can stifle the trigger. And the judge replied yes, which is... I mean, it's true. You absolutely can. You can also cast Misdirection targeting Duress. It doesn't mean it's going to end the way you want it to. We've got a Ponder off of Basic Island here. Both players setting up the early stages with their Ponders. Tristan stumbling so badly in mana game number 1. Game 2 mostly went his way until Nick conceded to a board full of Planeswalkers, and now Mox Diamond pitching Grove of the Burn Willows. We see a Wrenn and 6. But that Basic Island's going to stop him from casting it here on turn 2. Getting Wrenn and 6 down would be welcome. And a Wasteland takes out the Tropical Island. Flusterstorm stopping this Brainstorm. So Tristan playing a very rough line here. What? That's a Flusterstorm, isn't it? I thought he just tried to Flusterstorm a Brainstorm. If that's the case, Force of Will would not be able to protect it. Unless he did it with floating mana, paid the one, forced the other one. No, that's possible. I may have missed that. So let's assume that this is all working as planned. We've got an Arkham's Astrolabe off of a Basic Island. More snow mana added to the mix, so that Astrolabe is going to be able to filter to allow for really whatever Tristan needs here. Another Mox Diamond, and now finally a Dark Depths. So the only land on board for Nick is this Dark Depths. Tristan has a Surgical Extraction. If he can put this Dark Depths into the bin with a Wasteland and then Surgical it, that's going to be very bad for Nick. He's got to use his land drop, however. And now we've got a Snapcaster into Ponder. And this is a dangerous situation. If Nick draws Thespian Stage, I'm not sure that Tristan's going to be able to handle this 2020. We'll see if he's got any type of removal in his hand. Thespian Stage. I'm sorry, Wrenn and 6 taking down this Snapcaster. And it'll be able to recur any of these lands that have been discarded along the way, either destroyed by Wasteland or discarded the Mox Diamond. If this Wrenn and 6 is allowed to stick around, it'll be a real problem. And now, Force of Will pitching Narset to stop Tristan's Wrenn and 6. Baleful Strix draws a card. Gonna return a Mazevith, plussing the Wrenn and 6 and also protecting it from this Savage Owl beating. Grove of the Burn Willows is returned. And right now, Nick digging for a Thespian Stage to make a 2020. But will it be enough? Is Tristan going to have an answer to the Merit Lage? In his hand, we see Force of Will, Pyroblast. He certainly has potential answers in his colors. You've got Liliana's Triumph, which I believe we've already seen. Angarth's Rampage. Though the Triumph probably the best answer. as it is instant speed. Wasteland, really one of the better ways to interact with it. Jace getting hit with a Red Blast, Force of Will, Pitch, Spell Snare. Tristan investing to protect in this Jace. How will he recoup this card advantage? He's going to go ahead and Brainstorm with it and get right back to equal. He's now got a Jace and an extra card in hand to replace that Force of Will and Pitched Spell Snare. So dueling Planeswalkers. Not really clear which one's the better card, to be honest. And if Ren and 6 can get this emblem off, I mean, that's actually going to be quite a toolbox that Nick has in his graveyard. He has Red Elemental Blast, some cantrips. Could be very interesting. Are we going to see an emblem? Jace can't really knock the Ren and 6 off of its loyalty. This Baleful Strix being held back by the Mazavith. Land getting picked up and put back down. Mox Diamond discarding Tropical Island. And now Snapcaster Mage flashed in end of turn. Looks like no value though. Ren and 6 getting knocked down to 6. No blue mana symbol in Ren and 6 casting costs. That Red Elemental Blast not going to be too helpful against this on-board threat. Still plenty of good blue spells in Nick's deck to worry about. But this Ren and 6, the biggest concern right now. Tristan continues to dig with a Brainstorm. Finds Surgical, Force of Will, another Jace. So he's got some ways of interacting with the stack. Pyroblast finally attempting to find its mark at Brainstorm. It does happen. Now Ren and 6 ticks down. 5 loyalty on it. Baleful Strix now going to be able to be handled yet again by this Mazavith as he continues to tick up. Though he may actually just take out the Baleful Strix at some point just to give less power to any other creatures that Tristan draws. Leaving this Baleful Strix on board does mean that if he draws another Snapcaster or just like that, now he has to take the turn off to handle this, and Ren and 6 ends up getting hit. If you clear the Baleful Strix, then even if he has a Snapcaster, you can just always maze any creature that he has. Ponder. Without the presence of vintage cards like Time Walk, there's a certain cadence to these games that you can count on. Things can be busted in Legacy, but not too busted. Ren and 6, number 2. That is met with a fetch and looks to be a hard cast Force of Will. Ooh, and Spell Pierce. And that one means he's gotta force back pitching Jace. Thespian Stage, I believe the most recent land drop there. Jace continues to tick up. End of turn, making a 20-20. Liliana's Triumph clears the Merit Lage, and Nick throws in the towel that Jace the Mind Sculptor eventually gonna take over the game. Was already doing a hell of a job but at the end there, it would have eventually used its ultimate ability to switch Nick's hand with his library and leaving him with absolutely no hope. Extends the hand and puts an end to a very good match. Thanks to Nick and Tristan for playing on camera for us. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.